Hey guys, Waterfowler41 here, and today we are going to be installing a new differential cover on my 2014 GMC Sierra. So what we're looking at here is a cast aluminum differential cover from a company called PML Inc. They're out of California. So there's two obvious differences here on the new cover versus the OEM cover. First is this is aluminum. The original one, or the OEM one, is a stamped steel cover. The second obvious difference is the new aftermarket ones come with cooling fins. So being aluminum and coming with cooling fins, it's going to allow your differential to run much cooler. On top of that, this differential cover, this casing, the cover itself, will allow you to hold just under a half a quart more of oil in your differential. So if you have some severe towing applications where you're really putting a lot of stress in that differential, this is the cover for you. So it's going to allow you to run more oil and allow that differential to stay much cooler than stock. So let's take a look at everything we got here. So first is the oil drain pan. So essentially this turns your whole differential into a enclosed, kind of a full loop system. So you have a drain plug with a magnet on top of it to catch all the metal shavings. It's right in here in the bottom. Then you got the plug for filling. So it fits right here on the side. Then after you remove the 12 10mm bolts on the OEM casing, you'll be installing these hex head screws, these stainless steel bolts. These are 6mm heads, and they go with washers, Loctite, and they'll seal right up into the stock position. So on top of that, obviously you get the instructions and a couple other things I purchased to make the job a little bit easier, and then some other things you're obviously going to need to do the differential cover as it is. First thing I purchased, and this is just kind of a backup, I'm told that the GMC differential has a reusable rear differential seal, so it should be a rubber seal. If it's in bad shape, we'll be able to use RTV to make our own gasket. Either way, you can either use this or the rubber reusable seal, provided that's in good condition. You're going to need medium strength thread locker, so this goes on the new bolts, and then as you're threading them in, you tighten them down, they give you torque specs on those. So again, you're looking for the blue thread locker. You're going to need a 10mm ratchet to remove the OEM differential housing or differential cover. You're going to need a flathead to pop the seal on the cover once you get the bolts out, and then you're going to need a 6mm hex head. Then on top of that, in my application, I went with 75 weight 90 severe gear oil from AMSOIL. So after I install this, the differential is going to take about 3.6 quarts. So obviously you're stuck buying 4 quarts. This stuff's expensive, so make sure you know how much you got to buy at the beginning so you don't got to go back and return or waste any oil. Then on top of that, you're going to need an oil pump. I don't see a convenient way of getting oil into this plug while you're underneath the car. There's not much clearance there, so do yourself a favor, get an oil pump. This cost me $6 from Menards. Fits right inside this is a gallon malt style quart. It'll fit on the normal quarts as well, and then you get all your hardware from PML. So let's go ahead and take a look at my stock housing or stock cover. So it's ugly, it needs change. I want to change out the differential fluid, so this was a good time to soup up the cover itself. So we're going to remove those 12 10mm bolts, and then we're going to be mindful of the emergency brake that goes on the top and those two clips. We have to be careful, and we got to make sure we know which one goes on which side. So let's go ahead and hop underneath here and drain the differential of oil. Okay, so like I said, the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and start undoing these 10mm bolts. I don't know how these clips up here come off just yet. These are for the emergency brake here. I believe we got to bend them a little bit, so let's just go ahead and see what we can do with just taking these off now. And then we'll mess around with the other one later. Alright, so I started loosening up everything, and once I got up to this bolt, the seal itself just kind of popped itself and the oil started coming out. So I'm going to keep my oil pan underneath there, and I'm just going to keep loosening it. And then more is probably going to come out until we really crack the seal on this bad boy. Alright, so I got all the bolts off except two. I got one on the bottom that's just loosened up a little bit. It's probably finger tight at this point, same as the top one. So the reason I did that is so when I do pop this open all the way, the cover itself doesn't come because it doesn't come flying off. So just doesn't need too much help there. But again, it just kind of keeps the spillage to it kind of maintains it. So it keeps everything going down into my pan here. So it looks like that stuff came out pretty good. So with the exception of those two bolts, this thing's ready to come off. And those brackets weren't too hard to get off up here. It's just tricky with your spare tire in the way, so my suggestion would be, if you can remove it, just remove your spare tire, make your life a hell of a lot easier. So let's see. Let's save this. Let's hold this on up there. All right. Got our gasket off, so we're going to note which way it goes on. It looks like it's in okay condition. Let's let it drip off over there. Alright, while the rest of the differential fluid drains out, I just want to give you a quick side-by-side. So here is the OEM cover. Skinny on the right side. Ugly, steel, no fins, nothing for cooling. Here is the PML cover next to it. So side-by-side, you could definitely see where the added volume comes in. So it definitely beefs up the right side or the passenger side of the PML cover versus the OEM cover. And if you want to take a look at the inside here, and I'll say, first of all, it's going to be a shame that I got to fill this with oil because this looks awesome. Cast aluminum. I think it's called sand cast aluminum. It looks pretty sweet. But again, we're going to be filling this in with oil, but just the inside. So you see all that added volume here gives you the ability to add more gear fluid. So they got there, just on the OEM plug, all you have is a fill plug. You don't have a drain plug on the aftermarket PML cover. You have a fill plug here on the side, and then on the bottom, just like you would with your oil for your engine, you have a magnetic plug on the bottom. So before we get this bad boy slipped up into place, we're going to tighten down this, and then we're going to go clean off the surface where, let's show you. We're going to clean off the surface where the gasket goes on, and then we're going to reinstall or install the new PML cover, and we're going to utilize the stock gasket to do that. So that stock gasket looked like it was in good shape. So as long as we just clean everything up with a razor blade here, we should be alright. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright guys, just wanted to show you two quick things. First is the parking brake bracket. So this is the bracket that holds the parking brake cable that connects the two rear drums. One of the things that they suggest you do is this. So on the PML cover, mates up right there. On the top bolt on the OEM cover, grabs on right there. Not in the way of anything. However, with these fins here, you may possibly, that cable may be hitting some of the fins. So what they suggest doing is taking the bracket itself and bending it up that way, so it lifts that cable up off the differential cover, because now this, like I said, this differential cover is fatter. Essentially there's more space to it or more material to it, so you're going to need to get that cable up out of the way. So they say bend it up about a ½ inch. So again, it goes right there. We're just going to bend it up a ½ inch. It should be pretty easy. It's just a little metal bracket. Then the other thing is regarding the factory gasket. So this gasket can only go on one way, so you really can't mess it up. And after you inspect it, really what you want to do when you're inspecting a seal like this is you want to make sure that both of the rubber channels are in one piece. So it's a continuous rubber channel all the way around. You don't have any nicks in it. The nicks are what's going to cause you issues. So if you do, just go ahead and replace it, or in this case, we're just going to use the RTV gasket maker. But since this gasket appears to be in pretty good shape, we're just going to go ahead and throw it on our PML cover and use that. So we're going to start installing the differential cover. So real quick, one thing I didn't point out is in the package of bolts that you get, you have one longer bolt than the others, and that longer bolt is for this portion of the differential cover, which is the top bolt. That also is the bolt that holds the e-brake bracket. So we're probably going to do that one after we get a top bolt in, because that's got a little bit more to it, and I don't want to use that as a top bolt while I'm trying to thread a bracket and everything else through it. So I'll probably start with, I don't know, maybe this bolt, and then I'll go down to the bottom corner here, and then I'll just kind of switch off and get a couple on there and make sure that my gasket's lined up. Then once the gasket's lined up, then I'll go back through and put thread locker on the bolts and get them in there. So we're going to use our Loctite. We're going to put a little bit on each of these bolts, and then we're going to tighten them down, not all the way at first, just enough to get everything holding down, and then we'll go back and crisscross pair them. So just like you do with your wheels, you do here, go to the other side, then we'll come back, do here, other side, and then all over the place. So let's start by applying some thread locker here. Oh, this is a brand new one too. Again, bolt, thread locker, install. As easy as that. Alright, so we got all the bolts tightened. I had to push or bend this bracket up maybe a little bit more than a ½ inch, But actually what you can do is you could install the differential cover with that bracket, and then while it's installed you could bend it up until you have clearance, so you can kind of eyeball along the way. The other piece of advice I'll give you is this bracket right here. It's also holding hard line brake cables. It is threaded, so the bolt threads through that bracket then into the differential casing. So it is kind of a pain in the butt to do. So do that one maybe in the middle of doing all the other bolts, because you do need to thread the bolt through the bracket. The bracket has threads in it. It's not an open bracket like a washer. And then you put it through the differential cover into the casing. So other than that, everything's got Loctite on it. Everything's sealed up. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and fill it. So like I said, the new differential case is going to hold 3.6 quarts, I think, a little over 3 quarts of oil. So the way I've always done this is we're going to fill it until it overflows from here. So once it overflows from here, then we have plenty. So we're going to take our pump. So this is where the pump is going to come in really handy. So we're going to thread that on there. And then we're going to pump it on in. Alright, so we got through 3 full quarts, and then I got about, I don't know, a third of the way through a 4th quart, and we started dripping. So that means we are full. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this out, let whatever drain out. Catch it here. Let's move this out of the way. Let's try not to get oil everywhere. Grab this. Underneath there. So we'll let that drain out till it levels off, and then we'll take the plug and we'll throw that in there. So you don't want to overfill it. Hope I got that. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and tighten up everything, then we're good to go. So that is the differential cover install from PML. Now they have 3 different versions of this one. I have the black one with the brushed fins on here. They also have a basic silver one and then a chrome one. And the chrome is essentially this same cover, just polished by hand. It's supposed to look pretty nice. It's not a show chrome. It's really just a polished sandcast aluminum. So aluminum is not going to be that mirror finish that you're going to get. But I like the black one. It's a little bit more low-key. Looks nice. And, you know, overall, very happy with how it blends in with everything. Just kind of a quick overview of everything. You pull off the stock casing with the 10mm bolts that I had on here stock. You inspect your gasket. If everything looks good, then you can go ahead and install this guy. You got to bend your emergency brake bracket out a little bit, so this cable right here clears that top fin. Then you thread the bolts through each of the holes here. Remember that bracket up there is threaded, so you got to go through the bracket first and then into the casing. Use blue Loctite on everything. This is a 14mm bolt here. Tighten that bad boy up and then start pumping your oil in. Once the oil starts overflowing from the hole, that means you got enough. And on my truck, this is a 2014, so I assume it's the same as 2014 all the way up to 2018, in that it probably took 3.4, 3.5 quarts of oil, and it's 75 weight 90, 75 W90 oil. Severe Gear oil from AMSOIL is what I use. You can use whatever you want as long as it meets manufacturer specs. But other than that, that is the install. So we're going to tighten this bad boy up. We're going to let everything set up overnight, and then we'll take it for a test drive tomorrow morning. Other than that, thanks for watching.